Okay, so I had this idea last night to use cardboard to kind of mock up the suspension on this thing that we need to build, so therefore I can easily manipulate this to figure out how to get the tire to track up and down properly, where this pivot point needs to be in relation to this pivot point, and how long the A-arms need to be and where the tie rods need to be, so therefore we don't have any bump steer on this thing. So this is pretty cool. This is kind of taking the phrase CAD, cardboard aided design, to a whole new level. So I'm not really sure how much suspension travel we're gonna have, and I finally got it to I don't think it's gonna be that much. I think max on this thing is gonna be like that much. So we just kind of need to calculate for that. So anyway, let's start working on building the bottom A-arms. so we got the top pivot points for the top A-arms tacked into place on this side. Took a little while to get them lined up perfectly with this side, with these, and to try to figure out exactly how high they need to be, so therefore the suspension works properly. Now, all we need to do is just simply copy this on this side, but it's going to be a little bit more tricky than that because the engine case sticks out a lot further on this side than it does on this side, so we can't really do our half-inch rod trick. It's the engine, can't really do that, but I do have a way around that. I'll explain in a second. Another issue we have is, which I haven't really said, and this is kind of the reason why I was really wondering if I should do this or not, is these bars that I'm welding everything to, the original bars that I welded on here, I did not, when I welded them on, I did not make them, equal distant from the center line to each other. On the front, this one is 3/4 of an inch further that way than this one from the center line of the frame, and then on the back, on the back one on this side, it is 2.5 inches further in from the center line than this one because I had to clear the chain and everything. So that kind of makes it a little bit of a challenge trying to get everything I'm welding on here, trying to get it perfectly in center. I'm not really focused. I'm not measuring anything off of these bars. I'm measuring everything off of the imaginary center line of the frame on here. That kind of makes it to where it looks a little bit off. This, if you look at it from this, if you look at where I welded these onto here, these look, off by about 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch, which they are. But in reality, these are on center. These are not. So if I just simply took one of these and welded it to here, this A-arm would be 3/4 of an inch shorter than this side, which I could do, but I don't really want to, do a crappy job with this. I kind of want to do it right, and I want to make sure it looks kind of right, even though it doesn't really look right now, because it's trying to make it to where it works properly. I don't want to do a crappy job with this. So what I could do is, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to move this hook, because right now I just have it hanging off the ceiling. I'm going to move this hook to the main frame, get rid so therefore I can take off this bar. We do need to rebuild this thing. It's got all bent up in Idaho. We need to rebuild it. And then I'm going to cut this bar off right here and here, and then weld on the new one that's 1/2 inch further in. Then I'm going to take one of these, and then on this plate right here that I welded on, I'm going to move it 1/4 inch further in. That'll make up our 3/4 of an inch off center line. So that'll make it to where these are equal distant from these. For the back one, for this, because if I just welded it to here, it would be about 18 degrees, and then this one's about 8 degrees. So what I'm going to do with the back one, I'm just going to bump it out to whatever dimension it needs to be, and then bridge that gap with plate steel, and then reinforce it, make it all strong, so therefore it'll work. And then what we need to do for the problem with the engine case, I could remove this engine. I do not want to do that. It's kind of a nightmare process. We have to unhook all the wiring. So what I'm going to do to make it to where we can use this 1/2 inch bar trick is I'm just going to cut this 1/2 inch bar here and here, then take another 1/2 inch bar and bend it, and then weld it here, have a bend here, and then a bend here, and then weld it back onto here. So that will make it to where it'll clear the engine case, and we can get everything lined up perfectly. So that is what we need to do to just simply tack these onto this side. Wow, that looks absolutely horrid. I had to put this bend in here just to get it over the 1/2 inch. So, while it does look horrid, it should work better. This thing isn't really set up to bend this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm just gonna use a hammer. Well, just realized this once I got this perfectly into place. Like I was saying in the beginning of part 1, the tie rods have to fit through here. And I just noticed that where I put this, and this is the exact position as the other one on the other side, these are gonna be in the way of the tie rods. Not that big a deal. All I gotta do is just move them down probably like 1.25 inches, just so this is flush with this. And then I gotta do it to the other one on the other side. Okay, so we got the top A-arms installed. We have a lot of suspension travel, or a lot of travel with the suspension, but it is going to be limited because of the shocks we're going to be using. Don't really have that much suspension travel. Now, these are actually the shocks that I bought before the Idaho trip, and when I installed these on the original suspension setup, it just didn't really feel like we had any suspension because they were so stiff and they didn't really move that well. So I ended up going back to the original shocks and putting these on the shelf. Now, we could use these, but if we did, I measured it. These only have 2 1/4 inches of travel, and if we did use these, this tire would only have roughly 4 inches of suspension travel, which is better than what it used to be, but not really that great, I guess. So last night, I remembered that I bought these for a different project, and I didn't end up using it for that project. These have been sitting on my shelf for a couple of years. You can see the size difference with these. These only have 2 1/4 inches of travel, and these have 4 inches of suspension travel. I haven't calculated yet how much travel we'd have with the tire, but it's obviously more than 4 inches, so it's way better. So it's going to be a little tricky trying to get these to squeeze in here, but I can do it. And the one thing I'm wondering about is hopefully these shocks are going to be strong enough to support the weight of this engine, because this engine does weigh a lot. But let's try it. Let's try to use these shocks and see if we can get these to work. Okay, so I was just able to squeeze these giant shocks in here and allow us to have the proper suspension travel, make sure that this doesn't hit here, and we are definitely going to have some issues with the tires hitting the body while the tires are turned all the way, so we're going to have to figure out a way around it. If we have to cut some more of the body off, then It's not the end of the world, I guess. But now I measured it, and we now have 6.5 inches of suspension travel in the front, which is way better than what it used to be. I think it used to be like 2.5 inches of travel, which is quite pathetic. Which is why this thing was so terrifying jumping this thing. It landed like a brick, broke everything. My back was killing me every time I jumped it. But now, hopefully, now that I'm doing this change, hopefully it's going to steer better, drive better, jump better, and all that kind of stuff. I am thinking about, I'm definitely going to, you know, after doing all this, I definitely want to play around with the rear suspension again and try to get a little bit more travel out of it, try to get it to work a little bit better, because that's mainly, you know, while jumping this thing, the rear suspension is mainly what, you know, mainly what the driver feels. So, anyway, the next video is going to be steering. I'm not really looking forward to steering. It's definitely going to be a challenge to get it to work properly. And then we need to install the brake calipers, finish welding everything together. Right now, most of the stuff is just tacked into place. And then we need to test it, make sure everything works, and then paint it and finalize it. And then we're going to start working on the rear suspension. So that's going to have to be for next video of this project. For now, I got to end this video here. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video.